Monster and Clay Video. This is almost the same color.
Did you hear my conversation?
No, I did not.
Are you upstairs?
Yes, and I'm making a video. Video. I'm not gonna redo it now. I'm listening to the cantatas by Johann Sebastian Bach, and they are absolutely beautiful. And my papa dog is sleeping there on the couch with his heart pattern blanket on him because it's cold here. Very cold. I have winter clothes on, believe it or not, in the middle of summer. It's crazy because the Arctic wind is coming over here. That's what it is. Yeah, it gets down to like 55. It's not good for summer. I wish I had hot springs. I wish we had a hot spring property with hot spring floor heating system. Would be awesome. Would cost nothing in electricity. It's very interesting, these cantatas. They were written for the Christian church. Talked about this before. And Jesus called people his sheep. His sheeple. He called his minions his sheep. And we are no different than sheep are. We're the same, made out of the same materials. So you better be good to sheep, because you are one. And as Friedrich Nietzsche said, even the most prestigious leader, in quotation marks I'm adding, is also just a sheep. So there you have it. So we all have been indoctrinated, with so-called information, whether they are factual or not. It's still some kind of, it's information that has specifically shaped our neuronal connections. Okay, and that is indoctrination. The moment you question these things, that doesn't mean you have to all throw it out. You just question it. Be skeptical about it, investigate, test it for yourself. The moment you are going out of your comfort zone to test all of this for its validity, okay, whether it actually works. Maybe it works for some people, maybe it doesn't work for you, maybe it works for others, maybe it doesn't work for others, maybe it works for you. I mean, maybe it works under specific circumstances. Maybe if you look from above, you see a different dynamic going on than what you thought it is. Maybe it works only with this type of aggravator or that type of surrounding, or maybe with this or that, or with this chemical or that chemical. Things are complicated. Believe me, they are very complicated. Investigate into it. Become scientists. Study. read, but then don't let that what you read uh, harden your neuronal connections again and say, yeah, this is true because that guy said it. No, that doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't matter whether it's a religious person or a scientist. What what matters is that something, that whatever they say has validity, and you test that validity. You test that, you check it out and see if it does have validity. Check it out for yourself, read other things, compare this. What makes more sense? And then get into it. Why does this make more sense? Does it make more sense to you because you're religious? Or does it make more sense to you because you are scientifically oriented or an atheist? Question all of this. Question even your atheist views. Question all views. Or even if you're a panpsychist, why are you a panpsychist? Because someone else is, or because you found out that it works the absolute best? So that's the thing, not go by someone else ever. You find out for yourself, if you draw hot water into a jacuzzi, only you can figure out whether that temperature works for you. You can't go by Albert Einstein telling you that 110 is the best, because that would be way too hot for me. So I know I'm just making this up right now. I don't know what temperature Albert Einstein preferred, but maybe 104 or 105. I don't know. So 105 is pushing it. It's pretty hot. I actually prefer 100, but it could go up to 103. It makes you sweat. It's good. It's healthy. So, but find out for yourself. Don't go by what someone else says. Someone might say they love jasmine sambac, the flower, the essential oil, the jasmine sambac absolute oil, right? And then will say, here, I got you the best perfume in the world, and then you go, oh, because she or he said that, it must be true. No, maybe it's not true for you. Maybe you prefer rose. So same goes with about anything in existence. And things are much more complicated. They are much more fluctuating. Everything is much more fluctuating than we think. We think things are laws of physics, for example. People really cling to this, just like other people cling to religion. The laws of physics, that is written in stone, and this is how it works, and this is well, what if you get out of this particular solar system? What if you venture out further out, and you come into different spheres out there in heaven, as they call it? As Johann Sebastian Bach called it, he thought that's heaven. It's out there, the Orion Nebula and beyond. The heavens, because they didn't have much knowledge. So they didn't have the knowledge they have today. So it was the heavens, but some a whole more complicated than that. A whole lot more complicated. And there aren't angels with wings. Okay. The angels, they show up. Angel is just, it's a soul developmental level. Okay. It's a very high advanced soul developmental level, and that when a soul has reached that level, she or he, and it, it. A soul is an it. A soul is beyond gender, but can then come back as it, as it. It can come back as he. It can come back as she. It can come back as a refrigerator, even. Yes, everything has energy. Everything's energy. A soul can go into anything, into any kind of existence. Could be a static existence, but even a static existence, as as you see with this clay here, is not static. The table that this stands on is not static. It's more static than I am. It's more static than the clay is, because I can touch it. It is firm. It doesn't. You can't mold it like this. Okay? So it's more static. But if you look at it closer, if you go zoom in with an electron microscope, it's not static at all. It is full of energy. Okay? There's energy swirling and whirling in there. Okay? There's no actual solidity in it. What we perceive as solid is just our perception. It has a specific patina, a specific touch. It feels solid, but it isn't on a microscopic level. If you zoom in further and further and further, if you go into microscopic, into nano microscopic fields, then you see there are gaps and loops and loopholes in the table. This table is full of loopholes, but not corporate loopholes. I hope not. So, no, this is a great table. It's great. Wonderful. Very, very versatile. Made out of good materials. Seems very environmental. So, yeah, so nothing is written in concrete. Even the concrete is not written in concrete. Even the concrete, if you zoom in, has loopholes and spaces in between, and floating things and quarks and quirks and ticks and idiosyncrasies and nanoparticles, subatomic particles. It has electrons, protons, and smaller particles than that. Subparticles from those. Subatomic of subatomic of subatomic, and it will go on. Okay. And then we get into a field that leaps out of the Newtonian physics, because Newton only went to that far. He didn't go into nano spaces. So yeah, and then we enter into the field of telepathy. And that is something scientists don't want to touch because of their egos. Because it has been stigmatized. Because of egos. Egos stigmatize things. And that keeps people away from making progress in science. It's unfortunate. But it keeps going. There is no limit to it. There is no limit to the infinite cosmos. There is no beginning and there is no end. Okay? Because if you say there was a beginning, then what was before the beginning? And what was before that? And what was before that? And you say there was nothing, but there's no such thing as nothing. Even the empty gaps and spaces, they are also filled with energy. In microcosm and in macrocosm. Okay. There's always something. As the Buddhists say, even in nothingness is fullness. This is very well observed. It's amazing. Amazing how people could have come up with that understanding in philosophy 5,000, maybe more years ago. It's quite amazing. There's always been someone out there who has seen the future. Who's at least that advanced to understand that. And that's the tragedy of advanced people when they come way long before their time, before their wisdom, when everyone around them doesn't follow that at all, doesn't understand it at all, and instead will persecute that person. And that has happened in history, and that's a very, very sad thing. Very, very sad. No animal would ever hurt someone for thinking differently. That is a human who does that. The human, the sickest animal of all. It's a sad, sad thing. If we don't want to be sick or regarded as sick or regard ourselves as sick, then we have an option. We have the option of healing. And that requires introspection. That requires a willingness to see one's own faults. And that is the foundation of healing. If you're not willing to recognize the problem zones in your character, in your way of thinking, how can you heal then? Then you will be stagnated, like a truck stuck in a rut, stuck in the mud, turning the wheel but not getting out, because the ego stands in resistance to the insights. And when there are no insights, then there's no healing possible at all. Okay? That's a fact. I've been through this, so I know. I'm speaking from experience. The music that Bach wrote was written for the Christian church, but only because he needed to work for someone. He needed to write music for someone in order to be paid. He was also a Christian. There were no other options available in terms of philosophy and thinking and thought schools. Not much going on during the Baroque era. It was all about Jesus and the heavens and all of this. There was no knowledge, there were no options. Charles Darwin hadn't existed yet. He came in the 1800s. So during Johann Sebastian Bach, that was around 1650 or so. That was during the Elizabethan time, when people were being executed, when that was the time of the Inquisition, really bad in Europe, particularly in England. It's a horror what people have done. So Bach wrote this music. He's an angel soul. He wrote this music to bring love and peace and introspection to the world. Whatever name it was written under, whatever words were put into the singer's mouth, Bible and all of that, it doesn't matter. The music leaps out of every template. The music is the art. The music speaks for itself. Not the words that they are singing. It's kind of interesting. They're actually telling the entire Bible story and the supposed story of Jesus Christ and what happened, and whether that's even true. That is very highly questionable. So, word of mouth, things get distorted quite a bit over a course of several thousand years. Also, the Buddha story, who knows what's true in that story. Certainly not that he flew on a flying horse. Jesus didn't walk on water. He didn't make wine out of water, and he was conceived also through sexual intercourse. Obviously, it's pretty obvious, right? Yes, should be pretty obvious. Unless his mother was beamed up into a spaceship and then fertilized through whatever, frozen alien sperm or something. I don't know. It is pretty unlikely though that this happened, right? I mean, you have to really admit that. No matter how far you are into David Icke and Whitley Strieber. So I read all of this. It is exciting. It's entertaining. It is very exciting. It takes us out of our daily doom, of our boredom. But I consider myself a realist in a good way. There's my husband uses the word realist, but not in such a good way. So that's why sometimes I said to him, I'm not a realist, leave me alone. But I am a realist in terms of being skeptical, in terms of looking into things before I just buy into something. So that's a good skepticism that we all should have. And if we are into conspiracy stuff, then we should at least have an eye twinkling about it and have a little bit self-humor about it and say, yeah, it takes me out of my everyday mundanity and it spices up my life. So, and be a little bit more rational about it and say, well, yeah, it's for entertainment purposes. It makes people a lot of money, to say the least. Yeah, you can become very rich and famous and the men have a lot of women after them, the women have a lot of men after them, and yeah, so in that sense, it's a very successful thing to do. But does it help the world? Does it make the world a better place to write conspiracy stories? I don't think so. No, quite the opposite. It cries doom. It makes people psychotic, actually, just like religion does. Religion makes people psychotic. You see it all the time. You see it with the Muslims, and you see it with the fundamentalist Christians. What they are willing to do to defend their belief from some innocent, rational person who comes in there and says, hey, Why don't you look at it rationally? The music was written during a very dark age to bring light into the world. Johann Sebastian Bach is a level above Jesus in soul development. If you want to make a religion, then use Johann Sebastian Bach as the one, as your God if you want to. That's better than using Jesus. Jesus is not there yet. He's not a God. But an angel is not a God either. If you want to really look at a God soul level, then go no further than Paul Watson. Captain Paul Watson, the one who laid his body over baby seals to protect them from the Hakka pigs on the ice in Newfoundland. The one who was chopped and was bleeding, giving himself. He was giving himself to save the baby seals. That's God level. That's God level, sir. It's very few people who are able to do this. Jesus wasn't able to do this. But Jesus has done a lot. He has done a lot. And he has put himself out there courageously to empower people, to make the world a better place. I'm sure he has also helped animals and helped any living being in need of help, hungry and thirsty. I'm sure of that. But people weren't even mentioning it because they themselves weren't on that level yet. People who wrote these stories down about Jesus Christ have omitted a lot of things. They have tweaked a lot of things. They have added some things. And they have added things according to their own soul level state. So the true story, because of that, has not been told. The true story about Jesus is very anti-corporate. Yeah. That's why the corporations wouldn't want you to know the true story of it. They want you to have their Republican version of it. Why they really got their constituents by the balls, literally. With their Viagra and with their plastic surgery and with everything that they're selling to you, oil industry items. But I give you an innocent white flower anyway, because, and the infinity sign, the infinite cosmos. I'm giving you love energy because you desperately need it. You have been, most of you have been indoctrinated. It hasn't served you at all. It hasn't served your well-being. So I'm giving you some well-being with this. Listen to the music by Johann Sebastian Bach. That is my recipes for you to take home. Listen to it every day for an hour or so. It was written for the Christian church, so if you are Christian, you shouldn't be afraid of it. Johann Sebastian Bach is an angel song, and maybe he will come back. He came back. He came back, but not for a very long time. He came back, I think, born around 1940. He didn't live very long. He was a very great pianist. Guess who it was? Glenn Gould, the Canadian, amazing, world famous pianist Glenn Gould. I think probably mostly famous for the Goldberg Variations by Johann Sebastian Bach. If you've seen, most people have probably never heard about it. I think the first time they've ever had a glimpse of the Goldberg Variation was in the movie Silence of the Lambs, when Hannibal Lecter was in this intermittent prison, in some kind of intermittent prison, somewhere in Pittsburgh or somewhere. I forgot now. He was in this intermittent prison, and he was, because he wanted to talk to a senator lady whose daughter was in captivity. And she wanted to talk to him because they wanted information on his client, Buffalo Bill. Buffalo Bill, who was having habeas corpus over her daughter, who was holding her in captivity in a dungeon that he has dug himself. That story is, I watched that film 10 times because first I thought that was gonna be just a commercial movie, but it's not. That's a lot deeper than a commercial movie. It looks kind of commercial on the outside, on first glance. But there are so many things in it that I had to watch it 10 times with my friend Elsa together. So when he was in that intermittent prison, he stole the clip of a ball pen from someone's shirt. I don't know how he was able to do it with his mouth, or I don't know. But somehow he got a hold of it, and he was able just with that thing to unlock his shackles, and he knew how to play along with it so that no one would suspect him. And while he was standing there unlocking his shackles, his handcuffs, there was Glenn Gould playing the Goldberg Variations by Johann Sebastian Bach. Most people don't know what that composition is, so I'm telling you now. So look it up for yourself. It is brilliant. It's beyond brilliant. It's eternal. Those recordings are eternal by Glenn Gould. The Silence of the Lambs is a brilliant film. They're all good, all of them. All of those sequels, they are really good. They are all written by someone else. But The Silence of the Lambs, that is really, really, really brilliant. Whoever wrote that. There's a lot of emotion in it. Making a video still. So It will cut itself off after about an hour. But that way I don't have to look at the time. It's okay. An hour is long enough. Long enough of ranting and bubbling. There's eternity in this music. He was in a mental state where he received eternity. Some people call it God, but God is a painfully oversold word which should be avoided. I call it the blue God because of the sky. Blue God, a playful God. That's what the infinite cosmos is. It's not a punishing God. It's not the Christian God. God! You know, it has this connotation of daddy is gonna come in and hit me. And that's what you interpret into your religion, into your gods. That's what you interpret. You interpret your dad into that. Because people don't realize that it's your interpretation. It's your making. You are creating that image. It's just an image. It's a projection of your own suffering and pain. That's not the infinite cosmos. The infinite cosmos is not about punishment. The infinite cosmos is not about shaming anyone. It's not about bullying. It's not about war. The infinite cosmos is about healing and art and love and compassion, true compassion. And that's beautiful. When I talk to people, I see everything they're saying and their reactions they're all projections from their childhood pain, from their suffering. Another thing that I wanted to mention, when I woke up this morning, I was thinking about how people, in particular how men, when a woman is friendly to them and they find her useful, you know what I mean? That's the only way that most men look at a woman, for being useful or not. When she's really innocent, like this flower. And maybe a woman was nice to you out of her own volition. She was nice to you and you interpret it as, what does she want from me? If you don't like her, what does she want? What does she want? What does that hag want from me? Or you go, I can use her, and let me use her. Oh, you know, it's like not only is a woman being materialized like this, but the interpret, and that's all pain from childhood. They interpret a woman being nice to them, doing some kind of act of kindness for them, saying, hey, you lost your wallet, here it is. Or smiling at someone. Yeah. The other day, yesterday I smiled at someone out there by the recycling facility. That's where there's a lot of very disturbed people there. I smiled at someone for recycling cardboard. I thought that's cool. And he gave me a real weird look back. Like, and I see this so often, you know, I want to smile at someone because I appreciate them petting a dog or doing something nice, so I want to smile. And then they look at me like, what the fuck does she want from me? You know, it's like, that is very sad, isn't it? That's very sad. That's very, very sad. And you know, I read thoughts, I read people's energies, and it's very painful for me. It's so painful that I don't even want to go anywhere. I don't even want to go outside. I don't even want to go into a store, because what if I accidentally smile at someone and then they give me this look? That hurts. It hurts. I'm highly sensitive. It hurts. And all it is, I mean well. Just mean well. When a woman is nice to you, it doesn't always mean that she wants something from you. That she wants you. She wants to. That's your own projection of how you see women. You either want her or you don't want her in that way. So you project that onto the women as well. And that also has to do with childhood trauma of abuse, child abuse, and all of that. It's very painful. And then in the course of people reacting from the childhood trauma, they're hurting other people even more. And we've all been hurt as children. And in the course of our unconsciousness, unconscious behavior, and reactiveness, and so on, and our projections and interpretations of other people's behavior, we react in a way that we hurt the other person even further, and the other person retracts even further into her or his neurotic act outs. Whatever it is, a woman will eat more. I've been rejected, let me buy 5 pounds of chocolate and eat that tonight and make myself sick, and all of this. Or a man will retract and say, oh, I can't deal with women, they're too complicated. I better go back to my porn, act out, and withdraw from society, and all of this. And no one talks to the other. We don't talk to each other anymore. One time, not long ago, maybe it was 3 years ago, we were shopping, and it was kind of dark, and it was dark outside. Paul was in the store, and Kenny had to get out and need to make pee-pee, and I was then standing with Kenny next to, we still had the Prius at that time, I was standing with him next to the Prius, and this guy comes up to me. He saw Kenny, and he wanted to pet Kenny, and he looked very sweet, and he looked kind of nice. He was like 50 or something, and short, and very heavy, and kind of balding, and average looking kind of guy, but very kind and sweet, and it was so sweet how he petted Kenny. I'll never forget this. And I was just briefly talking to him about Kenny, and then he stood there and he looked at me, and he had this sad look on his face, and I could feel what he was thinking. He was thinking, are you single? I am very lonely, and I like you, and I want to take you home. I want to become friends with you. And I saw this, and I felt sorry for him, and it was very nice, but I had to tell him, my husband is in the store, we are here waiting here for him. And then the look on his face was, oh, of course. Here I go again. I'm gonna go home alone. And I just saw someone who's lovely on the inside. It makes me very sad thinking about this. I didn't have a card. I make my own self-made cards with my email address on it. I didn't have one at that time. If I had one, I should have handed him one and said, "Hey, we can stay in touch. You can maybe come over sometime and pet Kenny, and we can hang out together. And Paul can cook something." And very rarely, it was very rarely that we came across someone, an older lady or older guy, someone who was lonely, someone who was not popular, someone who wasn't looking like Ricky Martin, or Vin Diesel, someone who was, you know, kind of falling under the radar of society.